Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Council and Committee for the Town of Petawawa to order for February 23rd, 2026. Welcome to members of Council, staff members, and our members of the public that have joined us here this evening. We'll begin this evening's meeting with the reading of the land acknowledgement, and this evening it's Councillor Kern.
Thank you for your service. As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on traditional territory of the Omani-Wenini Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Omani-Wenini people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, and we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Calls to action number 87. We call upon all levels of government, in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples, sports halls of fame, and other relevant organizations, to provide public education that tells the national story of Aboriginal athletes in history. Recent progress. Since 2024, recipients of the Tom Longboat and National Indigenous Coaching Awards received their awards at the National Indigenous Sports Gala. The Tom Longfoot Awards also include regional recipients of the award, with recipients for each province and territory. The Aboriginal Sports Circle will continue to grow the National Indigenous Sports Gala following its inaugural event in 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Kern. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in any of this evening's matters? All right then, we have a public meeting this evening, so I'd like to call that public meeting to order. The public meeting has been called to receive public input on the draft 2026 municipal budget for the town of Petawawa. I'll just request that the clerk confirms that notice has been provided.
Thank you, Your Service. Notice was provided as required under bylaw 23503 to advertise council's intention to adopt the 2026 municipal budget on March 2nd, 2026, and to also provide notice of this public meeting scheduled for February 23rd, 2026.
All right, good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us tonight for the 2026 municipal budget for the town of Petawawa. It's always encouraging to see members of the public join us here this evening. Your input and your questions and your expectations help shape all the decisions we make as council. On behalf of council, I want to begin with a clear message. Our 2026 budget is built on two guiding principles: fiscal responsibility and the continued delivery of a high level of services and modern infrastructure that our residents expect and deserve. We understand that households are feeling financial pressures. There are rising costs for groceries, fuel, housing, utilities. Those are real. As a municipality, we are not immune to those same pressures. Inflation continues to impact construction materials, fleet equipment, fuel, insurance, wages, and contracted services. Infrastructure costs have risen. As well, regulatory requirements have expanded. This year, OPP costs have risen by 11%, which has resulted in a 1.25% levy increase before budget deliberations even began. OMPF and OCIF government funding was reduced again for Petawawa for another consecutive year. Yet, despite all that, our responsibility remains the same: to manage public dollars wisely, transparently, and prudently. Every dollar collected through property taxes must deliver value. That is not just an expectation, it is an obligation. The 2026 budget reflects careful planning and disciplined decision-making. Council and staff have reviewed every department, every capital project, and every operational line to ensure we are prioritizing essential services while planning responsibly for the future. In this budget, we are focused on maintaining the core services that define the quality of life in Petawawa. Reliable water and wastewater systems, safe and well-maintained roads and infrastructure, effective fire protection and emergency services, strong recreation programming and well-kept parks and facilities, and responsible growth management and planning. These are not luxuries, they are foundational services that support our families, our businesses, and our community well-being. At the same time, we have to look ahead. Petawawa continues to grow, and growth brings opportunity. New families, new housing, new businesses, but it also brings pressures on infrastructure and services. Our budget includes strategic investments that support this sustainable growth while protecting the character and livability of our community. One of the key focuses this year is long-term infrastructure planning. Across Ontario, municipalities are facing an infrastructure gap. Roads, bridges, water systems, and facilities must be maintained and eventually replaced. Deferring maintenance may seem like savings in the short term, but it ultimately costs more. This budget continues our commitment to asset management, investing today to prevent larger costs tomorrow. Fiscal responsibility does not mean standing still. It means making smart, measured investments at the right time. So what we have done is work to balance operational needs with capital priorities. We have pursued efficiencies wherever possible. We continue, as always, to seek provincial and federal funding opportunities to offset the burden on our local taxpayers. We also remain committed to maintaining healthy reserve funds to protect the town against unexpected challenges. The municipal budget is more than numbers on a page. It is a reflection of community values. It represents choices. Choices about safety, about recreation, about infrastructure, and about growth, as well as resilience. Council has approached this budget with seriousness and care. We asked difficult questions. We weighed competing priorities. And throughout the whole process, we kept one goal in mind: protecting the long-term financial health of Petawawa while sustaining the services that make our town a great place to live. Together, we can ensure that Petawawa remains financially sound, well-serviced, and prepared for the future. Thank you for joining us here this evening. Thank you for your involvement and for your continued commitment to our community. With that, I'm going to invite our treasurer, Megan, to come to the microphone and provide us with an overview of the key highlights of the 2026 budget. The floor is yours, Megan.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Service and council and members of the public. Myself, along with Colin, other senior staff, and council's input, have prepared the budget that we're presenting this evening. We've used historical data and average trends over the last few years, along with other factors that we know are going to be relevant for 2026 in preparing these numbers. As we can see in this graphic here, MPAC hasn't changed their assessment values from the 2016 numbers rather. This means that any growth in the taxable assessment for the town of Petawawa has to come from new developments, new buildings, new permits on existing buildings. This has resulted in a growth in the taxable assessment of less than 1% for 2026, which was very similar to the growth that was experienced in 2025. The budget that is going to be presented this evening has a resulting tax increase for the lower tier portion. So just for the town of Petawawa of 6.52%. There is already an upper tier, so the county of Brantford has already passed theirs, which was 6.68%, and the education portion of the property tax rate has not changed in many years. The impact then for a property with an assessment value of $500,000 would mean that overall it would be an additional $323 for the year 2026, Of that, $168 is specifically related and would stay within the town of Petawawa. So continuing on, how this breaks down from an operational standpoint on a department by department basis. We're going to start with the administration. So again, as I said before, we're keeping many of the revenue streams pretty similar and using the average that we've seen for revenue over the last 3 years. And I'd like to also point out that this budget doesn't include any additional staffing changes. So you see what we have. The major changes for the administration budget in 2026 are related to a new ERP or new finance software. The software we have is very outdated, and the changes to the new software would mean a better product for internal and also external use. There was also some aging infrastructure on the IT side that was also in this budget. The other more significant change would be that this year is the election year, and so there will be expenses related to the election. However, as council is aware, over the last 4 years, there was consistent money put into reserves for the election, and that's how that will be paid for in 2026. In terms of the building departments, again, the income has been pretty stable and kept conservative for the average of the last 3 years. It's not something that's super consistent in terms of who is coming for permits and that, so somewhat difficult to predict. In terms of the materials and supplies, we've also chosen to break out some of the GL lines to provide more transparency to council and the public in where the money is actually going. There were no significant changes within the building department itself in a year-over-year operational standpoint. In terms of planning, once again, the user fees are remaining pretty stable year-over-year. What is different for 2026 is that there are going to be more studies planned. These would be related to land use and long-term strategies for land inventory and disposal of land owned by the town. We're also planning for a zoning bylaw update, and this would align with the official plan and again, more strategic use of commercial property. In terms of the council expenses, mainly consisting of some salaries, those increases were consistent with what was the approved bylaw. Nothing crazy year over year, again, pretty stable from the last few years. For economic development, we had different grants that we're anticipating for 2026 related to a wayfinding project that will be included in the capital side of things. And I think it's also important to note here that while there were transfers that we planned for within this department into and out of reserves, the final transfers for reserves for 2025 have not yet been done, as we have not yet completed that financial audit. In terms of economic development, one of the major changes, again, year over year, would be that there's planned review of the SIP program in 2026 to make it more robust and also to encourage more use of that program. There's also some strategic transfers into reserves for future purchases of land or development of land strategies. In terms of the environment department, this would be your waste management and collection. The planned increase for user fees for garbage collection for 2026 is $10 over 2025. And important to note that many of these expenses are related to the current contract we have for waste management, which will end in 2027, and staff is already looking towards that end date to be prepared for it. And ready to go. In terms of the fire budget, we do have a couple grants that we have already received. One for some new gear and then also some money towards mental health. The focus of this budget is really in improving equipment, making sure that both of our stations are adequately staffed with tools and equipment, and keeping up with regulations that are ever changing so that we keep our firefighters safe. The major change from last year would be the addition of a new pumper truck for 2026. This is based on a replacement strategy that we have for the vehicles, and the new pumper in 2026 will allow us to better structure the future of the vehicle replacement within the fire department. And again, major focus on our firefighters' safety with new equipment that will be in line with the current regulations. In terms of our library budget, this is done and presented to us by the library board, and this year it has resulted in an increase of just over 13% year over year. We move on to our protection department. This includes bylaw, police, animal control. The user fees here, pretty minimal for dog park fees or licenses for animals. Most of this is related to rental of the OPP building. As Mayor Service already noted, the increased cost for the OPP is 11%, and many of the other costs that are incurred in this department are regulated by contracts, and those have all been approved already by council. There is a small increase in the police services budget, and that's just due to legislative changes that are effective in 2026. In terms of the recreation, culture, and tourism budget, there's no significant change to revenue anticipated for 2026. We are looking for increasing and changing the user fees in 2027. So capital will see in 2027 some changes to that. We also have our municipal accommodation tax. We've kept the amount at $100,000 similar to the prior year. And we have a new expense line item this year that will track the expenses specifically used from this income. Council will also note that there are some capital projects within the rec and culture plan. This is for the 2 parks that were part of development agreements that will be hopefully completed this year. The projects that were in the rec and culture expenses are all in line with strategic or recreation master plans that have already been presented to council. And I think it's also important to note that there has been a change in the way that some of the salaries have been allocated. So while that may seem like a big shift, it is really counteracted in other departments, and this is just done to better match where the actual expenses are going. We move on over to public works and civic properties. Again, you can see here that there's a shift in the salaries, which would be the counteraction of the shift from rec and culture. And mainly the expenses planned for this would be related to some property maintenance that is based on the building assessment reports to keep all of our facilities running in great condition, and also a continued improvement and maintenance to our roadways and other infrastructure. In terms of the capital budget, this breaks it down into each department and how the capital projects are going to be funded. This year, we plan on using all of the OMPF, OCIF, and CCDF funds. These are obligatory reserves. We plan on using all of them towards mainly transportation and road projects. Some additional debt anticipated for 2026 for the snowplow and also the portion of Petawawa Road. And reserves will also be used most heavily in the fire department to purchase new pumper. In terms of the reserve fund balances, again, the allocation of any possible surplus from 2025 has not been included in these numbers. So I would anticipate that the reserve balances will go up. But for the most part, we are left with pretty healthy balances in the reserve that are active. And I plan on coming back to council later this year with a reserve policy so that we can strive to ensure, as the service also said, that future unexpected expenses are going to be covered for. In terms of the obligatory reserve funds, again, CCVF, OCIF, and OMPF, these, we had some carry forward from 2025, but in 2026, we plan on fully using all of these funds to pay for transportation projects to do better with the roadways in Petawawa. So that is the general fund, all of the departments within that. And we move on to water and sewer, which are self-funded, meaning each one of these needs to balance to zero within itself. In terms of the water budget, we have the rates that have already been approved by council earlier this year. They're based on the Boston study, and we are preparing a staff for a new study so that 2027 rates would be reflective of changing costs and infrastructure within the town and the growth. The income, the user fees are based on those rates and the 2025 users. As best we can possibly get for that. And the aqua contracts make up most of the materials and contracted services in terms of the expenses. The same thing goes for the sewer transactions. Again, it must balance to zero, and we do this in both water and sewer by transferring into or out of reserves on a net basis. Yes, so that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to open up to any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Megan. You and your whole department for putting all that presentation together to help the public in understanding the 2026 budget. Just before we go any further, I'll just request that the clerk advise us if any written comments have been received regarding the 2026 draft municipal budget.
There were no written comments received.
Thank you. Just before I open it up to members of the public, I'll offer a few explanations. We talked about a large capital budget and some transportation projects, but we didn't go through an extensive list. But the major ones this year are Portage Road, all the way from Portage Landing subdivision all the way up to Murphy Road, Wilbert Street, which goes from Dundonald Drive to Fred Street, and our new in and out that we have planned by the Norman Binky Hall, by our comfort station. We have a new in and out plan from Norman Street onto the boulevard. So those are our main capital transportation projects. Okay, so at this moment, if there's anybody from the audience that would like to come forward and ask any questions or make any comments, the floor is yours. I just ask that you come up beside Kate there and press the button on the microphone. Just give us your name and you can ask any questions you may have or make any comments that you wish. Everybody's good? And if you're a little shy about coming forward on the microphone tonight, you can always send us some emails or give us a phone call and ask us questions and we'll get you answers for sure. Okay, now I'll open it up to questions from members of council. Okay. If you're wondering why council doesn't have any questions, we spent several days deliberating the budget. So at this point, we shouldn't have any more questions. Okay, so following all of these discussions, we do have a resolution that needs to be passed. I guess I'll read it for council, and then I'll look for a motion. So the resolution is that the proposed 2026 operating and capital budget be presented to council for approval at the March 2nd, 2026 regular meeting of council, and that the 2026 water and wastewater budgets be presented at the same meeting, and that staff is directed to present the 2026 tax rate bylaw to council for approval at a regular meeting of council in the second quarter of 2026. So if you're comfortable, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Roots, second by Deputy Mayor Savin. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, so at this point, I'll thank the members of the public again for joining us here this evening to listen to our budget presentation. And I'll offer again, if you do have questions, send anybody an email here and we'll be sure to get you the answers that you need. At this point, I'll declare the public meeting closed. Okay, to the members of the public, we still have lots of exciting things happening here. We have fire reports and recreation reports. If you're interested in hanging around, you may. So we'll carry on now with the fire and emergency services report for January, and I'll invite Acting Deputy Fire Chief Knott to give the report.
Thank you, Mayor Service, members of council. I'll be presenting the Fire and Emergency Services Activity Report and recommend that you report be taken as information. So beginning with the Fire Chief's comments, on January 12th, myself attended the council meeting. On the 13th, Acting Fire Chief Crew attended a budget meeting. On January 19th to the 22nd, Acting Fire Chief Crew and myself attended the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs Labor Relations Conference in Toronto. On January 23rd, Acting Fire Chief Crew attended an environment meeting with the province, and on the 26th, he attended a budget meeting. In terms of incidents, it was a good month. We had 4 carbon monoxide calls on Ravenwood, John Street, Murphy Road, and Kramer Avenue. Moving along, we had 4 smoke alarm calls, which were on Petawawa Boulevard, Wilson Avenue, Selkirk Street, and Winston Avenue. In terms of motor vehicle collisions, we had 2, one on Highway 17, which was a 1 vehicle collision, and one on Petawawa Boulevard, which was also 1 vehicle. In terms of fire, the only fire we had for January was an oven fire on Airport Road, and this was out upon arrival of the crews and was contained through the stove itself. We had 2 calls for smell of gas or smoke, one on Maple Avenue and one on Dutch Drive. And lastly, we had a major water leak in a building on Petawawa Boulevard that the concern was electrical in the building, so our crews attended that, our public assist crews. In terms of training, training was focused on ice water. We did 2 sessions with each crew. One was a scenario-based, where we put on a scenario for them to extricate somebody out of the icy water, and it wasn't there this time. And then we did just skills that we have to do each year for that evolution. In terms of maintenance, there was just minor maintenance on 3 different vehicles, engine diagnostic, replace some turn lights, and repair a brake valve. One of our SCBAs, or actually 2 of them, were repaired, and we had some small repairs on equipment in the hall. For fire prevention, it was a very busy month when it came to getting back into doing commercial inspections. We conducted 37 inspections, mostly on commercial businesses, with some follow-ups and a couple of home inspections, and no outstanding major issues. To date, for carbon monoxide and smoke alarm inspections, our fire prevention branch conducted 7 inspections. Fire suppression crews did 12 for a total this year so far after 1 month of 19. For new permits, for fire permits, there was no new permits, and there were 3 that were renewed, which brings us to a total of 917 that we're sitting at right now. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Jamie. Questions on the monthly fire report? None? So if you're comfortable, then I need a motion to accept it. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the Fire and Emergency Services monthly activity report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, next we have the Recreation, Culture, and Tourism monthly activity report for January with some bonus reports on the side. You're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here with the report for January to be accepted as information. We had a few training opportunities and information for Joanne at the Silver Threads, including a program that the Seed Shed. It's a growing and shed program that is growing in other communities. So this was an information session for Joanne to take part in, as well as both Joanne and Sean sat in on the webinar for the SALC for 2025 to 2027. Additionally, the marketing map Sean was a part of, along with Joanne, for guiding their center to growth. And then finally, Sean took part in a collaboration event with Culture Connect in January. Some of the meetings for January, the Seniors Advisory Committee met on January 7th. I had the opportunity to meet again with the Tennis and Pickleball Club to further discuss the next steps for 2026. I also had the opportunity to meet with the Garrison on a collaboration, potential collaboration for trail development, as well as meeting with CNL with regard to community support. So in similar fashion to their support for the Water and Dirt Festival, they're also looking at other ways how we can collaborate and have financial support or staff support for some other activities that we do here in the municipality. And lastly, Joanne and Rhiannon were able to take part in the Revitalizing and Reactivating Communities, which is an opportunity for all the selves across Brantford County to come together for different discussions, training, and other programs that they run monthly. As far as grants, the CPRA grant submission was put in for the Community Ambassador, which we had also done last year. That was a shared position between economic development and recreation to have somebody to sort of share the role between those two departments for community development. The last submission for Experience Ontario grant was submitted and received and accepted. That was money that was received just over $3,000 that helped with Ramble for events, including the Farm to Trail event. And lastly, the submission that was put in on January 30th for the seniors grant at $55,000. And we've got as far as the liquor license. It has been renewed and approved and is valid until 2030 for all of the locations at the Civic Center property. I won't go through all of them, but you can see the extensive programs at all the toddler, children, adults, active aging, and Silver Threads programs over the course of last month. And then we didn't have any events in January. The rental activity continues to be busy within the facility. The arena stays consistent with most hours being used in the evenings and weekends. You can see those hours stay consistent from the arena, the banquet hall, right down to the kitchen and lounge and the other facilities that the town oversees. In regards to tourism, myself and Ellie were at the Hamilton Outdoor Expo at the end of January. And then to follow that up, we also have just completed a few weeks ago a very successful cabin fever event. I just returned late last night from the Toronto Outdoor Adventure Show over the past weekend, which was a great success. And then staff are wrapping up for the March break camp. And that is the report for January.
Okay, thanks, Colin. It's another very busy month at the Recreation Department. I'll open it up for questions from members of the council. Question here,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, Colin. Colin, I see that the ambassador funding that you're applying for, is that going to be for the comfort station predominantly? And I guess a follow-up to that is, have you given any thoughts to, because I'm starting to get questions from the public, any thought to what those hours are going to be sort of nailed down, looking like for the spring, summer season?
So the community ambassador will be running various programs throughout the municipality. So those are two separate programs. So currently with the tourism ambassador, this is the role that you're speaking of, Julie currently works right now weekends throughout the off season, if we want to call it that. And then there is currently a position posted for that as a full-time summer position. So typically that role would be like the May to June and run right through till the end of August. That being our busy time of year, we decided to make that as our concentration. And then having like things like the snowmobile season and our off season be weekends only, because I think that's where we're going to get the most value out of our position there.
Thank you.
Councillor Kern.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks for the report, Colin. I was just wondering how your croaky girl turned out. Whether it was picked up on. I know it was really cold that weekend, so maybe that in the program.
It did go. I know we did have some families. I think it's a great opportunity for that collaboration between the library. We were able to find that to work. We did get some cold weather. Unfortunately, we got some really warm weather. I was hoping to keep that going right through to hopefully March. But I know the operations staff are already planning for next year to basically build and contain the water so that we don't have the water running off into further areas. Sort of like almost creating a small waiting pool so that when we get days of thaw, that'll get contained into that sort of oversized waiting pool so that we can keep that going longer. So almost like creating an outdoor rink on a smaller scale. So this being first try, I think we were able to learn a lot. Whether it was not on our side as much as I hoped. But that is just the thinking caps on staff to see how we can make that even better for next year and potentially even widen the growth course. I think it does have merit to put a little bit of time and effort into.
Thank you.
So does that mean weather dependent? We may start it early in the year and make it last all winter, not just a winter tournament?
And that's my goal, is to have that open on the Civic Center property as soon as it's cold outside and run that sort of in the same time frame that we would the outdoor rink. So as soon as it's cold enough to produce ice consistently outside, we can keep that going right until it's ready to melt so that we can keep that going the same way. And we had good collaboration also with the fire department helping us to flood that. So staff didn't have to run back and forth with large totes of water. We would work with the department to flood the rink using one of the trucks.
So what I'm hearing is the croaker curl season is over for 2022?
I'm going to say it's over for this year, unfortunately. I don't see a big frost. I think the forecast is sort of up and down, so it's not really conducive to keeping the ice consistent. It almost has to be sort of pebbled the same way a curling rink was. So that I think we pebble it and we lose it.
Okay, thanks. Any further questions? Councillor Dusek.
Thank you, Mr. Service. I was just wondering, I was looking at the lunch shed program, and I see that it's a program mostly for seniors, but I was wondering if Joanne had any feedback about that webinar, if it seemed like a program that might be a good fit here.
So I haven't had a full conversation with her yet. I know that knowing Joanne, she's going to be doing a little bit more homework on that to see what's feasible here. If that's something we can incorporate into an outdoor program as well, using what the properties we do have. I know that's already ideas throwing around that, so we're going to see if we can move to that step forward. It'll be some time planning and budgeting.
Is that the men's shed program? Are you liaising with the Empire folks?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that was a program that was brought forward by that group. And as I said, the South will meet monthly. The revitalizing and reacting, they meet monthly as the different Souths. So I believe that was something that was presented and probably has good interest for this community as well.
Because we hear a lot about it at the county level from Councillor Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
about the men's shed in our park. They have some kind of huge garage that they turn into a wood shop and metal shop, where all these seniors go and they collaborate and build different things. And it seems like a really great program. They get people out and socializing and contributing to the community.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to anyone that's been at Silver Threads. We do have a lot of women that take part in that program. I'm sure Teresa can speak to our committee members and the discussions that we've had about making sure that we're including them in our programming. And I think that might be a great opportunity to step forward to give an opportunity to sort of build that type of program.
Further questions on the report? I just wanted to comment on the 27 people doing the evening snowshoeing. That's a pretty big gang out there going snowshoeing.
And it's funny to see if you are out there to see the headlamps bouncing along. At one point we did have, I think we're up to 80 women when it was a women's snowshoeing club. It was a lot for staff to manage, so I think staff have a manageable number now.
Okay, any further questions, comments? Then I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Disco, that the Recreation, Culture and Tourism Monthly Activity Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have RCT-01-2026, a report on the municipal accommodation tax. Colin.
Thank you. So I'm here that Council endorses and adopts the recommendations of staff and of the Ottawa Valley Tourism Association with respect to the allocation of the revenue generated from the municipal accommodations tax, that the direct limit funds collected in 2025 be used to support recommended tourism and recreation related initiatives for 2026 calendar and budget year. Without going into full detail, the MAT tax was started in 2025, January 1st at 3%. We've collected, I don't have the final numbers, they're still being collected, but the estimated numbers are between about 100,000 to 108,000 as we finalize the last invoices. As you can see, we're looking at a few ideas for what we can do with those funds that we received on the municipal side. Some of the items that we're looking at is the expansion of Canada Day, the programming there. We're additionally looking at the expansion of Civic Center Days activities. We're also looking at partial support of the wayfinding projects for signage. We're also looking at the redesign and printing of town maps. Additionally, expanding the Petawawa Point rental fleet, as well as looking at the Petawawa Point artistic signage replacement, and further the expansion of the Trail of Lights. So these are some of the projects that we can put forward. There may be additional opportunities that come forward over the next few months to sort of support those as well. So this isn't a finished list of the exact programs we're doing, just a recommendation of hearing from the community, hearing requests from council, that this is what, as staff, we believe we can put forward to put as projects utilizing those funds collected through the MAP tax. As far as the OTA, they are our destination marketing organization. Keep in mind that that is exactly their jobs. They're there to look at marketing and advertising Petawawa with the 50% that they receive, so about 100 to 108,000. They are looking at a few projects as well. As you can see on what they put forward for the presentation, they are looking at putting forward some of that money, about $80,000 directly towards marketing and product development, and then approximately $20,000 into industry development. So you can see what they're putting forward as their recommendations of experts in the field, that they're going to look at different ways and different markets to reach and market specifically to attract people to Petawawa. Now, whether the samples of that we've already got and started into in January, the OBTA hosted an influencer here from Ottawa, a woman named Huda. She brought her family up here. They stayed at the Quality Inn. They had experienced meals at Matamik as well as Thai Valley, and they had the chance to snowshoe through the park. All this was captured and put through her social media. So this is her reach was, I believe, about 50,000. So this is a quick opportunity, and this is only coming in, I believe, capped at about $1,000 to $1,500. So this is just a drop in the bucket what we can move forward with. Two of the other projects are snowmobile projects that the OBTA is working on to basically reach both Ontario and then both into Quebec. So it was a partnership that they had also reaching between Pontiac and the Petawawa area to promote snowmobiling in the area. So as we see power sports growing, this is a step in the right direction for us. So we're seeing things going from motorcycles, ATVing, snowmobiling. So that direction that they've taken to already start that process in January going into February, this is the right direction for the town that wants to move forward in those areas. And I think the rest of it, we're going to continue through with some of those projects and continue on the marketing campaign with the OTA. Tomorrow we will be meeting with the local tourism businesses, some of the restaurants, accommodators, places, retails, to sit down with the OBTA and myself and staff, as well as other groups, to sort of start planning on what the local businesses and what the local economy needs. So what people want that collected the money for us to see grow that in the community. I believe that is everything for this section.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Just for the members of the public that are here, just a brief overview of what the MAT tax is. So last year we implemented a MAT tax, and it's anybody, hotels, motels, any of our accommodation businesses here in Petawawa, they collect 3% from anybody that comes and stays within their facilities. And then at the end of the year, all that money is added up and collected, and it's looking like this year it's about $215,000. The town gets to keep half of that, and the other half we have to give to a not-for-profit tourism entity, which is the OBTA. But all the money that we give them, they have to spend marketing and advertising Petawawa. They can't use it for anything else. We get to use our portion of the funding, as you just heard Colin say, to expand our tourism footprint here in the town of Petawawa. Okay, I'll open it up to questions from members of the council. Deputy Mayor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colin, I like the vast majority of the suggestions on expanding candidate day in particular, because I think we've done a really good job over the years of bringing people in to have a fun day, and it could use a little bit of sprucing up, and maybe now's the time to spruce that up. So that's great, the same with Civic Center days. I'm just wondering, with the expansion of the trail lights, what does that actually look like in terms of where we're going next?
So we were looking at not adding an extensive, so any of these projects could on average go between $1,000 to $10,000 for each one of them. So we're looking at little things, putting on the lights that project onto the soccer field from the tops of the soccer post to light up to the ground as you're walking through that path. And then this will be something we can build up over time again to sort of start adding on a little bit of lighting up the canal as well. So as you walk from the Civic Center, that'll become sort of a destination as you walk over to the market that usually occurs at the same time on the trail that you're going on.
Councillor Kearns.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks for the report, Colin. I'm okay with all the proposed projects. They all look reasonable and well within the scope of what the money is intended for, so good.
Any questions or comments? Yeah, I'd just like to say great thinking in terms of Civic Center Days and Canada Day. As you know, we've had a lot of feedback from the community that it seems to be centered around young kids, and there's not enough activities for the preteens and teens. So I'm hoping that any extra funding, spent everywhere, but maybe a little bit of a focus on providing something for the teenagers and the preteens during both of those big events. Great also that we're getting input from the businesses in terms of how the OBTA is going to market not only the town and our tourism, but the businesses themselves. I think that's great. My question I have is whether it's us or the OBTA who are bringing in these influencers and other social media personalities, is there any way that we can, and maybe it's just as simple as sending council the links to their, and again, I'm gonna look at in their Snapchat, reels, videos, whatever they're posting all of this information on, if we could get a look at what they've said about our town, because I'll be honest, if you told me where to go look, I would have a hard time finding it.
So yes, exactly. So some of that stuff is being produced. I know the one that Huda did has been posted. I will be putting a staff report probably quarterly as well, to sort of showcase some of that so we can bring it in and put on the TV so the council can get a bit of a taste for it. Some of these productions, I know the 2 snowmobile projects that went on, they were done in January. Unfortunately, it's going to be, that production takes a while. It's a little bit more than an influencer coming in and quick snapshots being taken. So as those things sort of come to fruition, I will be putting a collection of them together and presenting them to council once we have enough to put it, not just one at a time, but we can do 3 or 4 at a time to make it work. Value.
And how do I become an influencer? It sounds like a pretty good gig.
We'll work on
Just
that
thinking
next.
of a retirement plan. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Couture, seconded by Councillor Driscoll. The council endorses and adopts the recommendations of staff and of the Ottawa Valley Tourist Association contained in staff report RCT-01-2026 with respect to the allocation of revenues generated through the municipal accommodation tax, directing that the funds collected in 2025 be utilized to support recommended tourism and recreation-related initiatives for the 2026 calendar budget year. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have RCT-02-2026, Petawawa Point Revitalization 2026. Colin, you're on a roll.
Thank you. So here again, asking and recommending council accepts the following presentation as information on preparation of the 2026 budget plan, and this will move forward with a 5-year plan for the revitalization of the point. I'm sure many will remember back in 2012, a revitalization project was brought forward from consultants, bringing in about $4 million. And we would take a guesstimate that if we looked at that now, we'd probably be looking at the same project costing probably double. It was brought forward that if we could do something in multiple stages over multiple years for a fraction of that, that council might be willing to accept that stage moving forward. What I've been able to put together, if we look at the presentation, is a projected and proposed draft of about $92,000. So Petawawa has been a focal point. It's a gem in our community. As an avid paddler myself, you can't buy, you can't build, you can't move forward with something like this. It's already in our community. It's well used for summer camps. It's well used for our special events and other projects. So I think this is an opportunity to get a bit of a facelift and sort of match on how great this location is to start to build on sort of sprucing that. So as I had mentioned, this is not just a place where people go to swim. This is a place where families meet, have picnics. We run several events from our paddling race, the doggy paddle, kayak fishing events. This is a place that not just for our residents, but for tourists, neighboring communities. This is sort of a place in everyone's heart. Some of the areas that we're looking at, to give you a quick snapshot, in following with the wayfinding and signs, directing people to go to the right places to get them down there. We're also looking at maintenance, sort of redesigning unofficially the layout of the beach, creating an interactive area, and then spreading this over the next 5 years to sort of build this up continuously year after year. So that'll give you an idea, just the overview of what we will be able to do over the 5 years. I'm proposing for the first year we start to look at that $92,000 on average to start building that concept. You can see this would be some of the areas that we could look into. So we've already started some maintenance down there. You can see from that picture above. Unfortunately, some of those trees have started to grow on the beach. They're not really, that's not a vital area. They will never grow into anything. They're in sand. It's not conducive for good growth. But we are looking to sort of regreen some of the areas further back where they'll have a chance to grow as well. So they've already started to sort of clean up what we call the scrub brush to open up more areas. And then moving forward year after year, depending on the budget that we want to approve, how much council wants to invest into this project, we can make those adjustments. So some of the items we'll be looking for is the wayfinding. I know Christine is already working on it, and we've been able to collaborate on that to start looking at getting people to the point, helping them park, getting them from off of the highway right into town and down all the way to the point. There's lots of opportunities to send them down for ice cream, send them back to the civic center to go to the bike park and move them through town while we show off what our points of interest are in town. So this would be an example of that as you come down to the corners before you turn down off of Victoria. Sort of given that whole, I think unofficially the point is known, that whole community down is known as the point. So I think we adopt that area as that and sort of already utilize it using our new wayfinding signs to sort of start to put that in place. I will apologize before I go forward with all the signs. A graphic area, so some of this might be a little bit rudimentary as far as placement. Again, the signage there to let people know where they're going. I know a lot of people have gone down to the point. I don't know how many people know about that little outcrop of rocks off to the left. We've hosted small music events there. It's a beautiful spot for people to go fishing, the paddling and the trails that go there. So it's not just the beach, that whole stretch as soon as you start to enter the area and showing off what's at the mouth where the Petawawa and the Ottawa meet. So we have whitewater paddlers that come all the way down to the point and stop there to take out. So I think we want not to show off the beach, but that entire area of those two rivers. Please forgive my drawing and ChatGPT on spelling Petawawa wrong. I couldn't change it, and that's a little oversight. But I think if we're going to sort of adopt the concept of the point, a beach, that's my rendition of a kayak paddle, that could replace the artistic sign that is behind it, the welcoming sign. Unfortunately, I believe that sign behind it that you can just sort of see in the corner is probably reached its day. Unfortunately, it was made out of wood. That only has a lifespan, and so far, I think it might be time to sort of update that with something new, creative, and artistic. So there's lots of opportunities that we can make that change, revitalize it, and really give it some new life, and sort of make it a proud point as we enter into the beach area. So as far as maintenance, you can see the red areas. Some of that work is already being done to sort of pull back the scrub brush that's sort of grown here and there to give us a wider open beach. Anyone who's been down there on a sunny Saturday afternoon knows how busy that beach gets. So if we can create more opportunities for people to use the beach, that gives more opportunity right there. The green arrows will indicate the new plants. So we are looking at, you can see sporadic areas where there's no plants, great opportunity to sort of fill up those shaded areas. This cement pad railing, excuse me, after years of water coming up, we're looking at putting that pad, a railing around that pad. The erosion causes the sand to pull away. Year after year, staff fight to try and put the sand back in place. So it's give and take and give and take. So we're looking at just for safety to put a railing around that cement pad that's around the beach hut. And then the yellow area, we're looking to further develop on what we've already done a great job on creating accessibility to move a few key features that we already have on the yellow area, parallel on the left is our kayak launch dock, over closer to the boat launch area so that we have accessible parking signs there, and it's a much shorter distance for someone that is in a wheelchair or has limited mobility to walk down from the designated parking directly to, and we would use less mobile mat, it's less distance for someone to walk. So I think putting the right things in the right place is vital for a beach like that. We have a really far distance if you have to look from the parking lot all the way out there for someone to roll through. It also limits the amount of time we have to have staff out there sort of making sure that that mobile mat or access point is clear all the time. It'll be a much shorter space if they have to do that. And then the last point, the new features. We're looking at a few locations of putting in some new features, including benches, garbage cans, bear-proof garbage cans that close the garbage flowing around onto the beach. So we're trying to think, moving forward, how do we ensure that the garbage cans that are probably from many decades ago are actually usable and prevent the garbage from flowing out onto the beach. So as I said, we're removing some of that scrub brush. You can see that center point. Not exactly being in falling with our slogan of being dynamic by nature. That doesn't really ring with that at all. So those are some of the items that we might be looking at or samples there. There's the bear cans to keep wildlife out. The closed off garbage cans that we push them down. Benches that are solid, they're not just quick made wood. And then some of those plastic benches that pieces are easily replaceable, they won't weather, and they'll last longer. So the areas that we're looking at, creating shade areas. So these are kits that we found that will help us create the shade areas. The ones that we have down there are very high right now and very difficult to actually, as the sun moves it, you have to run your blanket with you. So unfortunately, we found these that are cost effective and are much lower to the ground and sort of help create that, as well as a bit of a relaxed area. We're looking at designating areas at the beach or like a dog area, a paddling rental area, a swimming area, and then a relaxation area. And then growing the carnival ladder games up on the grass area as well. And then further, as I mentioned before, sort of, and I'll get into further with the mobile mats and picnic areas. So you can see here where all those little dog icons are. That's a section of the beach that's not really used. I would recommend it, whether we move forward this year or following years to come, that's an area that's really weedy. The dogs aren't going to care if you're throwing a ball in there. It gives them a place that's away from where everyone is swimming. And then further expanding the canoe program that's used for everything from our camps to special events to rentals, lessons. It's a really well-used area. When I first started, there was one canoe, 2 kayaks. We're now up to about 20 stand-up paddle boards, 20 some odd kayaks, a couple of canoes, and a couple of other features that we're going to be going with. It's well used and only $10 an hour. It's affordable for most families. And then you can see the swimming icons to sort of really highlight and sign that area as a swim area. We've had problems over the years with all the caution signed areas that it's a high traffic boat area, and it's also a lot of pull of current through there. So we put up signs, and we want to really educate the public that the danger behind that between boating and being such a small body in the water and amongst all the currents. We want to designate the areas so we know this is for swimming, this is for relaxation, and sort of making each point on its own very identifiable. So there's the dog area that I'm recommending whether we move forward this year or next year. So it would start right adjacent to the beach and sort of go down or upriver. So creating that area so it's signs so people know. We can keep it in multiple ways, that it's off leash or on longer leashes, so the dogs can still go into the water, but they're not in the same areas as swimming as the general public. And then the shade area, so just off to the top of the point, creating these structures that are built off of corners. So they're 45 or 90-degree angles, and basically if one of those pieces of wood gets damaged, is vandalized, it's nothing more than taking it out and putting a new piece of 4x4 in, so that it gives us the longevity that those steel pieces aren't going to erode anytime fast, and all the pieces are easily replaceable. So that's what they would look like there, or a modified version. The one on top, we just have the sail shade on the top to cover that up, so it gives a place for people to sit and relax. And then the ones with no bottom on it would be right on the ground next to it, along that, so you can see the red dots on the bottom, and then creating that sort of relaxed area along the beach line that is underutilized currently. For our grassy area, we have lots of activities over there over the course of the summer. This would create a games area. Those are all made out of cement, so they're not going to get vandalized. They have a long lifespan on them as well, and when we need to change them out, staff can come down, put them in the back of the truck and put them away for the course of the winter. And that's some of the games we'd be looking at, and you can see the area in orange where we'd be proposing to put them. So these are just options. These are not Petawawa Point, as you can tell, but just sort of to give you a visualization of creating those areas and entertainment areas. So we have a large shade structure currently down there. It would be great if we can turn that into sort of an entertainment area. It already gets people under there all the time, and we can run power to it. We can have live music down there once a week, do like small acoustic performances and things like that. So it just gives you an idea of forecasting for the future. If we're going to plan, I'd like to plan 4 or 5 years from now, not just for next year. So again, those are just some of the things that we're looking at doing as far as accessibility, furthering the mobility mats and creating more options there. The accessible recreation, the wheelchair, the paddleboard, that's a very proud moment for me, having that wheelchair paddleboard and having families travel from Kingston and further areas away to give their children and their family members an opportunity to paddle with them, and people can paddle completely independently on their own. So this is something that I really want to see moving forward. So we're looking at furthering the beach wheelchair and advertising this more. So this might be an opportunity for accessible recreation that we could use those mat fundings to advertise the fact that Petawawa is accessible friendly. And then, as I mentioned before, moving the kayak launch, accessible kayak launch closer to behind that sign that's on the bottom. It's actually up close, so you can see just in front of the tree is where the accessible parking is. So it makes sense to put the launch right next to it. And then additionally, we're looking at creating a functional picnic area that is truly accessible. Right now we have, if you were to go down there with your family and have limited mobility, there's nowhere for you to go on the beach. So as you can see in this area, something a little bit more elaborate than what's in the left-hand picture, is creating a space where you have the access to go to a picnic area, sit down and have lunch with your family, and then go down to the beach and enjoy the water, swim around, be in the water. And you can see as indicated on the left-hand side in there on the red, that we would create that sort of picnic area in a shaded area to give an opportunity, mostly to someone to not just come here, swim and leave. They can stay with their family, they can stay with their friends and have a picnic. So as I mentioned, we're looking at putting, those are signs up. Unfortunately, we lost that very large sign that says no swimming on this point when we had the flood. But we do want to create more signage and awareness for people that to know, A, these really get the wheelchair accessible features, that there is danger. We do have current signs up there more, but I'd like to put more up. And this is the opportunity, as the sign says there. It's the chance for us to get to the point. We have a great opportunity down there to really, this is a short paddle away. People pay top dollar to go paddle 1,000 islands, and this is sitting right in our backyard. So this is the reason why I look at if Petawawa can be dynamic by nature, this would be a reason right here. And that's the presentation I have for the revitalization for the point.
Okay, thanks. That's a fantastic presentation, Tony, and a great vision for the Petawawa Point of the future. I'll open it up to council for questions. Councilor Roos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Colin. Yeah, I like it. I like that it's phased in and it's economical. and to see how everything's going to work. I think there's some good opportunities there. Any thought about a bigger dock down there as well? Good thought there.
I think that would be something we'd have to do a lot of work on as far as like going further into the water. If we can widen that. I think
Yes, I mean, sorry, widen, just a little bit more stable, bigger, for people, you know, when they're trying to load a boat with a family or.
Yeah, we're currently able to do two boats at a time, or 2 trailers at a time. That is something we can look at adding on maybe to the length. I don't know if we could go any wider without really changing how that's set up. I think we'd end up, if we had to launch more at a time, I think we'd probably get into getting more bottlenecks. We already have a lot of issues with the amount of trailers that are down there and people backing up and coming forward, backing up and coming forward. I think if we had 3 or 4, that would just add to the congestion, but it is something cost-wise I can look into.
Thank you, but overall, yeah, I like it. I like it. Just it's a good phase in, like that dog area as well. Just to keep them away then from the public. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Driscoll.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, Colin, I just want to say great job. This is definitely something I've always wanted since I've gone on council. I think every municipality would kill to have the Petawawa point in their backyard. It has been, I mean, I know there's been plans, but it always comes down to the dollar, so I really appreciate that you're actually using your local knowledge and expertise to redesign it ourselves. We know what it needs. I think you've done a great job with your layout, how we're phasing it in. It makes it definitely economically viable. And once people start to see some small changes, I think the feedback is going to be phenomenal. And like you said, in that picture that's described it all right there, like you wouldn't know that you're in a municipality right there. You could be in Millsouth Apartment, you could be in Thousand Island. People don't realize what we have down there, and I think this revitalization is step one of making it beautiful down there. So I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Councillor Kerner.
Thank you for your service. Great report, Colin. I really like it. You're in competition with Rudy here to see who's got the best PowerPoints. Love the phased approach. It's a reasonable amount of money to spend on a community asset, which is so important to us, and it's phased in. It makes so much more sense than the report we had in 2012. It recommended $4.5 million worth of spending. In people's minds, in the taxpayers' mind, that was happening. You're spending $4.5 million on Petawawa Point, so why don't you spend $100 grand to fix up my drainage issue or whatever? So this is nothing scary like that at all. It just makes sense. It's a nice way to approach this. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Colin. Back in 2012, it was the Cadillac version of Utopia. So this is much more practical. This is making us Petawawa proud and for Petawawa people, as well as bringing in tourism. Just to follow up on what Murray said about the boat launch, I would agree that making it wider would add to the congestion, but what we have down there so many days is boats now parking themselves to the left because they need to go and use the facilities, or they want to go and get a Mr. Freezy or whatever that is. So we have that floatable docking system. So I would like to see the research undertaken to seeing how we can extend our current dock, because we've got the product, and allow people to take their time, use the facilities, maybe check out what the Petawawa Point has to offer, and not feel that they have no space to be able to do it, because it's a real quick in and out. So thank you.
Councillor Kutcher.
Thank you, Mayor Service. I'll just add that I too really appreciate this plan. I think it's a real precision facelift, and I like that we're going to be introducing some wayfinding down there and trying to deconflict the uses. I think that's a great idea. I've been down there before with families and trying to find a sign that says "Don't swim down here." You're like, wait, it's here, it's somewhere here, and it should be in your thing. So I really appreciate the strategic and like precision way you're going to just revitalize this area. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so it sounds unanimous, Colin. So great job and a great vision for the point. Love the accessibility piece for sure. I think it's, we're becoming known as an accessible community, and this just adds to that. So I think that's great. The log sign, you're right, it's a little worn and a liability issue, so it's great that we have a plan to replace that. And I love your idea of the giant paddle, whether it's just the end of the paddle or you've got the other piece on there, but I think it's really appropriate to have that sign, and I'm hoping we can see that done this year, get rid of the old logs and get that sign replaced. That'd be great. We talked about the rocks and the water being a liability. There's some pretty large rocks there. I know when it was swimming, it wasn't such a big deal, but with all the stand-up paddles and kayaks we have coming in, and you're proposing to make that the paddle area, and that's where the rocks are. So my concern is that all these people on stand-up paddleboards, should you topple at that point, nobody's wearing helmets, and sometimes the rocks are just, inches underneath the water. I think it'd be a good idea if we could use our own equipment and manpower to take those. I think there's 2 or 3 large rocks, and there's some more that are closer to the shore, just to make, like we talked about accessibility, but that's a big piece of those rocks there as well.
So I'll see if I can work with Ted and Chris from Public Works to see logistics, if there's any environmental issues with us making any changes to the water before we do any of the programming those items, but it's definitely small for me, and there is a
Then we can use those rocks to build our new pier to stop the Petawawa River from eroding our beach. But again, that would take a further environmental study as well. But it's nice to see that as part of it. And I'm just throwing this one out there because I know we've had these conversations, and it's not exactly at the point, but we're talking about this whole area being a recreational area. We do have an island, and we discussed putting some benches and garbage cans and perhaps making that a camping area. The one island that does belong to the municipality of the resident. Has that seen any further thought?
So we have had discussions. Myself and Ted haven't had a chance to get out there this summer to show it to them. We also need to look at the logistics. It is town-owned and crown land as well. So I just want to see if the reality of getting out there. If we're gonna be honest, to put picnic tables and other things out there, I want to ensure that garbage is collected. That we have staff that can go out there and do just that. I hate to make this a destination for the public to go to, and they get there and we don't have the resources to keep it clean and keep it well kept. So I think if I can take Ted out there so we can get a vision of that as well, and to see if there's something that we can do with staff that go once or twice a week to make that happen.
Might be a good cross-departmental use of our fireboat. Go out and collect garbage with our fireboat. All right, any further questions or comments? Okay, I think it's a great plan, and I guess we need a motion to move it forward. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Roots. The Council accepts the Petawawa Point revitalization presentation as information and authorizes the proposed budget of $92,000 for the 2026 portion of the revitalization work plan. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next, RCT-03-2026, reciprocal use of facilities agreement with the Renfrew County District School Board. Colin.
So I have the recommendation that Council accepts and adopts the attached and updated reciprocal agreement with the Renfrew County District School Board pertaining to the shared use facility. In 2015, bylaw 96/15, the town of Petawawa and the Renfrew County District School Board entered into an agreement regarding this shared use facility. This agreement pertains to use for each party to use the other's agreed upon facility at no cost and agreed upon reduced rate. So furthering moving forward with that, we're just looking to bring back this agreement with the school board and a few updates. This will give us an opportunity to move forward with some of our facilities that were, for a better term, looking for opportunities to run additional programming for the municipality. It'll give us a chance to use their school gymnasiums at Herman Street Pineview, and Valor. So there's an opportunity for our staff that are already going in there right now, currently running basketball, volleyball programs, pickleball, to further that. We're also in discussions with the school about using their locations in the off-season and the summer to find another location to expand our summer camps, that we can use their schools to run the camps, and we would move around with their maintenance programs. So for 2 weeks while they're cleaning up and sort of redoing Herman Street, we would be in Valor, doing their cleaning of Valor, so this is a great opportunity. So what it does, the board would have use of our facility during school hours. As far as the arena, it would have to be at a reduced rate of 50% off of the youth non-prime time. So that cuts our lowest rate in half for the school to use. And then other areas, including soccer fields, pickleball courts, when not being used or not being already utilized by other groups, that they would be able to use those facilities for free. And then in turn, as I mentioned, it gives us the chance to use those facilities, and when they're not in use, like school time, the county will pay 50% of custodial fees. I've had multiple discussions with our staff as well as the school board, and it's an agreement that everything that you see in front of you, and as well in the bylaw, that the school is in agreement of these features and all stated. They're willing to move forward with this agreement again from here forward. I'm just looking for council to approve moving forward with this agreement.
Thanks again, Tom. Questions from members of council? Everybody's good with this? So it's similar to the one we had before, there's a few tweaks. And it's great to hear that the school board and I guess us as well are in complete agreement with the updated version. I like the fact that we changed some of the hours there with the fields to allow for the, I guess we call them league sports like rugby and soccer, that they can get those games done after school without having to, I guess, rejig times and things like that. So there are no questions? Okay, then I need a motion to accept this one. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sapper, seconded by Councillor Driscoll, that council approves the reciprocal use of facilities agreement with the Renfrew County District School Board as presented, and that council formally adopts the agreement by bylaw at a future meeting of council. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. One more. RCD-04-2026 separated dog park.
So I'll try and keep this one as quick as well. Just looking at council receives the attached report presentation for information, and it provides staff with direction on the preferred approach for planning and budgeting for a separated dog park. Just to give a bit of history, this is brought forward to council at a request of issues for safety concerns around dogs and users, and separating a smaller dog park. As you can see in the report, again, there's many reasons why we can move forward with that, but additionally the cost that's associated with it. What I would propose in all the reading that I've been able to do is that the recommended for medium and large sized dogs is 2 acres. Currently that's about the size of the current dog park that we would put forward. Going on to page 121, you'll see what I'm proposing is that we add on to the current dog park a 3 sides, utilizing the fence closest to the walking path heading toward Valor. We could add in 3 additional sides and creating a half-acre park for smaller dogs. What this would do is we can use staff resources to limb up trees to about 7 or 8 feet height and create a half-acre park specifically for smaller dogs and separating the 2. The cost of that will be a saving as far as separating the smaller dogs and utilizing one side of the fence, and then looking at what we can do using staff resources, as I know there's also some fencing currently existing on the property, but unfortunately at the moment it is under snow, so I don't know how much fencing is there that we could reuse to sort of drop the price. In quick estimates, some of the factors in about a 6-foot chain link fence for those 3 sides, installation and the gates and everything, we're looking anywhere in between $20,000 to $30,000. So that's the biggest factor. So just to make council aware, just do our due diligence. Currently, we have on record for this year 48 people registered for the dog park. So as we move forward, budgeting something in the realm of $20,000 to $30,000, there's many steps we can take forward to try and ensure that we see more increase in just 48 people using that dog park. That we are probably well know that there's probably more dog users in that park. So before final decisions are made, I can look at additional cost savings, additional ways to generate more revenue moving forward. But that's the information that I do have if council did so choose to move forward with a separated, smaller half-acre lot. So I will leave that in council's decision for direction for staff to move forward.
Okay, thanks, Colin. And just for council's information, you may be aware of this, you may not be, but Garrison Petawawa also has 2 dog parks. One on the north town side and one over here on the south town side. Okay, questions? Councilor Kerman.
Thank you, Mayor Service, and thanks for creating that report, Colin, or whoever created it. It's very comprehensive and gives all the facts. And I was a little shocked that we only have 48 users for our dog park. And I guess perhaps that's because of an abundance of dog parks in the area, or I'm not sure what, but so of those 48 users, how many are small dogs? I don't know. Are we going to make that kind of investment for a handful of people or half a dozen dog owners? I don't know, but it's certainly a good report to, I'm not going to support it at this time, but it's certainly good information to have in our back pocket so that we can reapproach this at some future time if we have more use in the dog park. Would be my opinion.
Any questions? Councilor Driscoll?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm similar to what James is on this. I mean, I think we need some more information on it because it is a substantial amount of money for an unknown or how many people are. I understand the safety aspect that the state can come forward with, but there are other options that maybe we can look at as well. But for now, I think we need a little more information on how many users we are getting. Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are not registered that use the dog park, but by the numbers, it's a tough sell for $30,000 for 42 users.
Deputy Mayor Sandberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's news to me that there's a small dog and a large dog park in the Garrison. So the question is that fee-based and are people able to use it? So, I mean, if the answer is yes, then we probably have enough at present in our community. I totally agree that big dogs and small dogs should be separate for all the reasons that are outlined here. Again, though, like my 2 colleagues have said, if it's for 25 or 30 or 35 people, we need a lot more investment of potential dog park players to move forward with that kind of money. But thank you very much for the report. Very thorough.
CAO wants to weigh in here.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cyber's question. The clerk and I met with Garrison Petawawa in the fall of last year, and we did confirm the use of the Garrison parks for our residents of Petawawa, and that is definitely allowed. And in today's meeting that we had with Colin, myself, and the Mayor's Service, and Ted Markbach, that was also reiterated this afternoon as well, or this morning, sorry.
Further questions or comments on the dog park? So I'm in agreement with the rest of the councilors around the table. It warrants a deeper dive, I guess, let's say. Maybe if we monitor the usage of the dog park a little more closely this year. I'm not sure, I know that we've received complaints before about people who have bought a permit and are concerned about people being in there who have not purchased a permit. I know there's been complaints about that. It's a difficult thing to monitor though, I would think, because we can't put a staff member there all the time, every day, to see who's got a permit and who doesn't. But it would be interesting to get more concrete numbers on usage, for sure. And if there was a way, I don't know how we can do this, but if there was a way to determine how many large dog users and how many small dog users there are, just as a way of gauging such a large investment there.
So the dog park tags are collected at the Civic Center. We do take information about each of the dogs, their rabies, vaccinations, and on so forth. We can request that staff go through what type of dog it is, and then try and get the numbers to the best of our ability, understanding dog breeds, to figure out small versus big dogs, and then creating what's that break line for a small dog to a large dog. Also looking at small alternatives and ways of maybe working with Petawawa to maybe look at how many people are there that don't have tags. Is there a way, alternatives that if it's $20 for a dog you pet to have your tag, do we increase it that it's $25 for every user that has a dog and they get access to the dog park for both. So there's multiple options, and I can put together some ideas over the next little while of what's attainable, what we can do moving forward, and bring that back to council in a short while.
And one other thing that kind of came out of today's meeting was the garrison has asked us for data concerning usage of our programs and summer camps and all of our services, really, in terms of which members of the Canadian Armed Forces are using it. So I'm wondering if when people sign up for the dog park, if we can also put that tick box there to say, are you a member of the Canadian Armed Forces or dependent as well? Because as we know, they would like as much data as possible from us because it helps them in determining their investment in their own recreational infrastructure. Okay, any other questions or comments? So what I'm hearing is that at the moment we're declining to invest the money to create a small dog park at the moment. We'll look at what this season brings and then make decisions based on that. I need a motion? I need a motion. The resolution says the council declines the creation of a half-acre separated dog park for small dogs. Moved by Councillor Carmody, second by Councillor Driscoll, the council declines the creation of a half-acre separated dog park for small dogs. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Please carry. Colin, you're done. Thank you. You're trying to break a record for most reports in one evening.
Still a lot to go.
Okay, next we have Legislative Services Monthly Activity Report for the month of January. Don and Colin will be co-presenting.
Thank you for having us this evening. So for the month of January, we had 21 calls for service for animal control in January. And their service, you had asked at the last meeting if we could indicate what was on the garrison, and only 2 of those calls were for dogs at large on the garrison. For the month of January, we've had 380 tags sold for dogs and cats within the town, and that does include garrison residents who are slowly starting to register their pets. We did have a meeting last week with CFHA to ensure that their messaging was getting out to the residential units. Within the town, there were 2 parking infraction notices issued and 4 warnings. We have received complaints from residents regarding people parking in accessible parking spaces without permits at both the Petawawa Market Mall and the Civic Center. We recently did have our other accessible parking signs reinstalled at the Civic Center. There was an issue in the winter you can't see, so now we have the signages back up. We had some noise complaints during the month regarding loud music, and I think people playing drums was an issue at one address. And there were 10 false alarms for January.
Thank you, Don. Carrying on with the rest of the report, under human resources, under meetings, so that there's a number of meetings listed that Jody and myself or other members of the senior management team took part in in the month of January. And then under recruitment, I'd just like to highlight that we finalized the hiring of our building inspector, and today was the first day of his employment, and I'd like to welcome Ali Kidway to the team of Petawawa, so happy to have him on board. And we've also conducted interviews in the last month for the 3 firefighter positions, and they've advanced to the next stage of recruitment. And actually, since this report has gone out, we have a 4th candidate that has also gone through to the next phase. And if I'm understanding correct, Jody, Kurt and I talked about this today, this might be the first time in my employment with the town of Petawawa and Jody's that we are at full staff complement for the town. So kudos to the team, because that has never happened before. We've either had a vacant position that was not filled or in an acting role, and this is great to see. So under the summer posting, just wanted to highlight that we have them out on our website right now. And under training, acting chief crew, acting deputy chief Knott, Jody Derma, and myself attended the Hicks-Moreland Labor Relations Forum last month in Toronto. And I will say it was a really informative seminar to attend, and we learned a lot, which helped us into our negotiations, which I will talk about later on in closed session. But we got a lot of good information with that session, and I think it is worthwhile. I wouldn't say to attend every year, but definitely on years of negotiations. It's important to know what other municipalities are doing, and it gets a better understanding when we're trying to negotiate with our labor, our union and our labor. And carrying on under other items, there was we are commencing the organization of the March 6th Employee Appreciation and Service Award Lunch, and I believe council has all been informed of that, and we're quite looking forward to that event, which will be next Friday, held at the Civic Center at the banquet hall. Under Commissioner votes, we had 29 requests for the month of January. Under marriage licenses, we had 3 that were issued in the month, and revenue received of $300. And last month, we had no community flag requests. There was a number of communications posted, and council had 5 certificates of recognition from the mayor's office that we completed. And I'll just highlight, you see the long list of meetings that between Dawn, Kate, myself, Jody have all attended over the month, but I will highlight that on January the 11th, we did go live with our new website. And I think it's important to note that it's a very well done website. There is a few glitches that Kate and Christine and her team are working through, but for the most part, I'm quite happy with the website. Very user friendly, and I think it just reflects well on the new town logo and just the use of the website itself. I find it much easier to handle than our old outdated website. Unless Dawn has any other questions she'd like to, or comments she'd like to make about the meetings, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks. Have we gotten any public feedback on the website?
I haven't received any myself. I don't believe.
So no complaints then?
No.
Okay, questions from members of council on the report? No? Okay, it's interesting to hear that we have had bylaw calls for animals up on the garrison, so it's good that we've made that agreement and we're working together and helping them. Okay, I need a motion then to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Ermany, that the Legislative Services Monthly Activity Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we'll go to LEG-06-2026, the Election Related Resources Policy Report. John.
As everyone is aware, we are in an election year, and there are legislative requirements that we have to meet under the Municipal Elections Act. So according to section 88.18, before May 1st in the year of a regular election, municipalities and local boards shall establish rules and procedures with respect to the use of municipal or board resources, as the case may be, during the election campaign period. The proposed policy is intended to balance the duty of a member of council to represent their constituents and the legal obligation of the municipality not to contribute to or be perceived as contributing to an election campaign. It is recognized that members of council as elected officials are responsible to serve their constituents and fulfill their responsibilities until the end of their term. That said, clear separation, though, must exist between an elected official's role as a member of council and their role as a candidate. So basically, rule of thumb, if I was walking in off the street to run for council, could I use this item? And if not, then we shouldn't be using it as a member of council who's also a candidate. So the 2026 version has been updated from the 2022 version. It now includes registered third-party advertisers, and the principal section has been expanded upon, as I just spoke to. I've added items 2, C, D, E, F, and G. They've been added to provide further clarity regarding the use of town logos, branding, any headshots or photos produced by the municipality, contact lists, websites, domain names, and social media accounts. So in our previous version, these items were alluded to, but now they're more specifically spelled out. And then for the previous item 2C, respecting donations and sponsorships from council members' expense allowance, that has now been moved to item 3A, as it was better suited to that section as it dealt with expense allowance administration. And then the previous 3A through B were renumbered to 3B and 3C. And there's no financial implications associated with approving this election-related resources policy. So I'm looking to have council's endorsement of the policy and to bring it back by bylaw at the next meeting for adoption.
Okay, thanks, Don, for your work on this report. Questions from members of council? It's pretty straightforward. So I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the council approves the election-related resources policy for the 2026 municipal election as presented, and that council formally adopts the policy by bylaw at the next meeting of council. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Don. Next, general matters. We have a correspondence from the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board, and it's about the growing Renfrew County Catholic District School Board schoolyard canopies with Renature program. It's from Jamie Thompson, the Director of Development of the Renature Foundation. And if council will remember, just last year we passed a similar resolution for the Renfrew County District School Board. So I'm not going to go through too many of the details here, but it's all about us endorsing their grant application so that they can do the same thing the Renfrew County District School Board is doing in terms of forestation and outdoor playgrounds and outdoor classroom facilities at various Catholic schools throughout Renfrew County. So just before we get to the motion, does anybody have any questions on the motion? Okay, it's a long motion, so I'm not going to read it first. But if you're comfortable with it, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Couture, seconded by Councillor Roots. Whereas council of the Corporation of the Town of Petawawa has the following interest: improving our schoolyards by creating outdoor learning spaces and tree canopy environments. And whereas the Renature Foundation is undertaking the growing Renfrew County Catholic District School Board schoolyard canopies with Renature program, which will be building outdoor learning spaces and planting trees at the elementary schools in Renfrew County Catholic District School Board. Now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Petawawa acknowledges and supports the funding opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies Initiative, or the growing Renfrew County Catholic District School Board schoolyard canopies with Renature program, which will be building learning spaces and planting trees at the elementary schools in the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board in partnership with the Town of Petawawa. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Petawawa also recognizes that the lifetime contribution from the Growing Canada's Community Canopies Initiative will not exceed $10 million for tree planting within our municipality, inclusive of a maximum contribution of $1 million for infrastructure activity costs, and that if approved, this project will be counted towards that limit. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. And now I need a motion to go into closed. Moved by Deputy Mayor Savran, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the meeting be closed pursuant to section 239, paragraph D, paragraph 2, paragraph D of the Municipal Act 2001, S.O.2001, C.25 as amended, to discuss labor relations or employee negotiations with United Food and Commercial Workers Canada, Local 175, to provide for a collective agreement with the Town of Petawawa Volunteer Firefighters. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, welcome back. We've just returned from a closed session. A closed meeting was held. The matter discussed concerned collective agreement deliberations between the town and United Food and Commercial Workers Canada, Local 175. There's nothing further to report. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Driscoll, second by Councillor Carmody, that the meeting be adjourned at the call of the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Adam, you got a name tag malfunction, don't you?